My pleasure to call to order the regular meeting of the Village of Cache Creek this November the 3rd, 2025. We have a delegation, Blue Earth Recyclables Cache Creek Wind Project. Tyler Kirchner from Blue Earth Renewables will be presenting information on the Cache Creek Wind Project.
Are you able to see most of council there, Tyler and Jared?
Yeah, we can see the review. Hey.
Perfect. And then I'm just over to the side. Camera doesn't see everything. And then we have our CFO, 2 members of the public, and the Hub community group as well in the room.
All right, great. Yeah, and I think I'll probably take the lead and do most of the chatting here tonight. So it's Jared, and Tyler will chime in for some questions and things like that too, if you guys have any. So I've put together a short presentation here so I can share my screen if that works for folks.
Mm-hmm.
And I can follow up and send these slides after. Can you guys see the slides now?
Yeah, you got it.
Great. Awesome. Well, thanks a lot for having us on today. We were in the community there about a week and a half ago for our first open house for this project. And we also followed up and made a presentation to the regional district and introduced the project on the Thursday after the open house. So thanks for reaching out, and happy to share some information that we have here now. So we'll start just a little bit about the companies involved. So Tyler and I work for Blue Earth Renewables. We're a renewable energy developer headquartered out of Calgary with offices in North Vancouver, Guelph, and a couple in the US, one in Phoenix, one in San Diego. We are a developer, owner, operator. So we operate all the projects that we construct. And then we also do some third-party operations of some other assets and stuff as well. And we're a mix of hydro, wind, and solar operations. So we have quite an extensive footprint in BC already. We have a portfolio of run and river hydro projects, mostly on the coast. We also just recently commissioned the first kind of utility scale larger solar project in the province, and that's located up at Highland Valley Copper on one of the rock dumps kind of on the north side of the highway. So that was a 15 megawatt solar project called YM Solar. And just east of there, a little bit north of Logan Lake, Blue Earth was successful in the first BC Hydro call for power with a 104 megawatt solar project that's under development, but now has a power purchase agreement with BC Hydro. On both those solar projects, as well as this proposed wind project, Blue Earth partnered with the Inkakapma Tribal Council, and so they are the partners on those 2 solar projects, and the proposed partner for this wind project and stuff as well. And so they would be 51% owners of the proposed wind project, and we're working with a few of the other communities in the area about potentially being involved as well. I mentioned a little bit off the top, Blue Earth's operations philosophy is that we do all of our own operations of the projects. This includes a 24/7 remote operation facility headquartered or out of our Calgary head office. So all of our assets are monitored remotely, as opposed to using a third party for the service. And it's a requirement of all projects to kind of have 24/7 monitoring and be able to respond to who you're selling the power to or who you're connected to to turn the project off or on, or if they're working on, if there's weather events or transmission system outages that they need to plan around, you need to be able to respond quickly. So Blue Earth does all that on their own and has their own remote monitoring. As I mentioned, they self-perform all their own operations and maintenance. So we are the operators on site. It's Blue Earth employees, and everybody that's staffed locally becomes a Blue Earth employee. And we've got a long experienced track record of doing this. Blue Earth's was founded just over 15 years ago, and the team's kind of a collective of folks that have worked for a few different renewable teams and that. So been at this for a long time, and with that, we've been through lots of different developments and have, I think, a fairly good handle on how to work closely with landowners, local government, indigenous communities and other key stakeholders and that use the areas and the sites, or the areas where we're locating our sites. So the project itself that we're proposing here would be a wind project up to 300 megawatts, and based on the turbines of today and what we think would kind of be suitable for the site, that could be up to 51 wind turbines. Some other facilities that would be included in the project would be the collection system. So that's the lower voltage power lines where that's collecting all the power from the turbines throughout the site. And that would all come to a central point, which would be a project substation. So that would be the substation where we have the transformers transforming the power up from 34.5 to, in this case, 230 kV. And then we would have a 230 kV transmission line that would go from the project substation to the existing BC Hydro transmission line. And I've got a map and stuff a little bit later that I can show you where we're considering connecting to BC Hydro. There would be an O&M building for the project. Sometimes those are at site, and sometimes they're in a nearby community. It just kind of remains to be seen what would fit best for certain projects. But on projects in the past, we've had some that are kind of in town if it's close enough and works for the project, and sometimes we build an O&M building as part of the project. Would have a mix of temporary and permanent access roads. This area in particular has a fairly extensive network of forestry roads and resource development roads already, so we would be working to kind of use as many of those as possible and limit the amount of new road that needs to be built. And then it would have its control systems and some other associated kind of facilities. So that's the main kind of what would make up the project. In terms of employment and jobs and things like that from the project, we would have about, I'd say it would average about 125 full-time employees throughout the construction period. And the construction period for a project this size would be 2 to 3 years. And once operational, we would have a staff of approximately 8 full-time local employees that would operate and maintain the project. And the general project location is northeast of northeast of Cache Creek, and currently is under an investigative use license with the Crown. In terms of community benefits, there's numerous benefits that come from these projects. One of them obviously being the employment, construction employment, as well as operational employment, creating some good long-term jobs for the project local to the area. Significant long-term tax revenue from the project. And I'd say with wind projects specifically, there's very little need and service draw on the local infrastructure from a project. So, you know, we would be taking kind of lead on the access roads and responsible for all the upgrading and maintenance of those on project dollars. And then, you know, we're not going to be connected to kind of local water infrastructure or needing, you know, garbage collection or any other services that are kind of provided by kind of regional tax dollars. So the, you know, the revenue and stuff can go a long way, the tax revenue to supporting other programs and things in the area that the regional district wants to pursue. With all of our projects, we set up a community benefit fund to kind of direct annual investment dollars and things into local charities and different programs and things like that. We also, Blue Earth corporately does run some scholarship and bursary programs annually and things like that for folks that are looking to get into the industry or retrain or get some training and things like that. So we run that annually. And then kind of local economic benefits that's kind of, you know, spin off from the project and that too for local restaurants and accommodation and things like that. More so in construction than through operations, but still some through operations as well. So in terms of the project schedule, we are really early in development of this project. So we're really trying to get out and get some feedback from the community early and engage with folks, and that's why we had the open house there a couple weeks ago. And that will not be our last open house. We'll be doing a lot of engagement on this project as it continues to develop. In terms of the actual process, BC Hydro is running another call for power right now, and the current bid submission date is January 5th. So we do anticipate submitting a bid in to BC Hydro for consideration of this project. And if it was selected and successful, we would expect to kind of hear about that towards the end of March in the spring. But then there would still be a lot of development and work that would go on kind of over the next 4 to 5 years. So we would be doing, you know, continuing to do all the wind monitoring studies, all the environmental studies, access, geotechnical studies, everything to do with that, archaeological, continuing extensive community engagement, and working towards our submission into the regulator for the project, which will be the BC Energy Regulator, for the eventual permit to allow us to start construction. Construction would likely start towards the end of 2030, and as I mentioned, it would probably take a 2 to 3 year construction window for a project this size. Under this call for power, the projects would need to be up and operating that they select by near the end of 2033. So that would be kind of the earliest we'd see operations start. And then the project would get a 30-year power purchase agreement from BC Hydro. The expected life of the project would actually be a little bit longer than that. So typically about 35 years for a wind project now, and then you would look at repowering or dismantling and decommissioning the site after that if there was no opportunity to repower it and continue operations. So that's kind of a general sense of the life expectancy of them. And lastly here, I have a map and stuff too at a high level. So this yellow polygon here is just a general study area that we have kind of identified for the project. You can see this kind of gray outlined, almost spiderweb looking polygon. This is the investigative license that the previous developer Enterprise, who Blue Earth acquired the license from, had applied for. And so this is kind of the area under study for locating the turbines. And we've still got lots of work to do. The turbine layout's very preliminary. But currently we're kind of looking at most of the turbines would kind of be in the center area of this, based on constructability and what looks to be the highest wind resources based on our wind mapping and things like that. And then we are considering 2 potential points of interconnection. You can see this, just scroll down. This orange and black dot over here, and then the pink and black dot down here. So this is the same line. There's the 230 kV line that kind of runs along the ridge and the highway here. That would be what we're connecting into. And we've done some initial engineering studies on that, and that's how we arrived at the 300 megawatts. They feel like based on the constraints and the loading on that line, it could probably take up to about 300 megawatts of power. So right now we have in, as part of the BC Hydro process, applications for them to study this location here, north of town, and then the location east of town. And around towards the end of November, we'll get some feedback from BC Hydro on that, and they'll come back to us and tell us what the high level anticipated interconnection costs are for that and for each of those, as well as the few size iterations that we put in for it, and that'll help us kind of inform and right size the project based on kind of its most competitive size for the bid. So that's all I had prepared at a high level, and this was a subset of the boards and things that we had at the open house. A little bit of a summary of the open house. I think we had about 20 attendees come to the one that we hosted in Cache, and then the following night we had one in Clinton, and we had about 13 attendees at that one, I think. So decent turnouts. I think, we typically get about that. I think the general, we had some positive comments, we had some concerns. The general concerns, I think, were visual. I think in terms of the visual concerns, where we're proposing initially to locate the turbines, there'd be very few locations that you would see anything from. So we had some folks from Loon Lake, down at Loon Lake and stuff along the lake. You wouldn't see any of the turbines based on the proposed layout, because we're planning on being a lot more to the center area, and you wouldn't see anything from Cache or Clinton or any of the towns. You kind of need to get right up on top to where you'd see infrastructure. And then the other common theme that I'd say we heard was with the wildfire and stuff that went through the area, people were wondering about, impacts to water runoff and like reforestation of the area and things like that. So, we as a project and stuff do not plan to clear many trees or anything extra than just where the footprint of the turbines may be, and we try to locate turbines where there's already some bare ground and things like that, especially when the fire had went through the area. So to give you a sense, we would use at each turbine location, there might be about 2 acres of land that would be cleared for kind of the pad of the turbine and for installation of it. And then you'd have the roads and things like that we're trying to use as many of the existing ones that would kind of interconnect the turbine locations. And the collection system would run along the road. So that's kind of the footprint of the site, and then the transmission right away to the point of interconnection. So, we heard from lots of folks that, those fires had impacted, the rate of melt in the spring, because there's not as much shade and snow and stuff, or shade covering the snow, so it's melting quicker in the spring, and it's changed some waterways and runoff patterns and things like that. So that was one of their concerns about, a project would it impact kind of the reforestation of the area, and really, it wouldn't, we wouldn't be clearing extra trees. We're not trying to keep the area clear or anything like that. So we're keen to see the area grow back to kind of what it once was, and we would just kind of have our small little footprint up there. So those were the main topics that we heard, but open it up now for any questions.
Councillor Peters.
Thank you. Just a couple of questions. You're saying 2 acres per turbine plus the roads. What's the actual size of the property? That sounds like a pretty big footprint to me.
The total cleared area?
Well, yeah.
Or the extensive area that the turbines would be located in.
Yes, the extensive area the turbines would be located in.
Here, let me show you.
The map we have doesn't show it very clearly, so.
Let me try this other one here. So we have this, I think, let me just see, it's loading up here. Sure, I want to zoom in. So as big as it wants me to get. So this is just a very, very preliminary turbine layout, showing kind of the 51 locations and stuff on here. So this would give you a sense of where it would locate in there. So while it does cover a fairly large area in terms of like extent, the actual footprint of a wind project is very low compared to its, what it's producing and things. So, roughly 100, 110 acres total footprint for the turbines, and then there would be the roads and things in addition to that. But this layout gives you a sense of how tight the turbines are kind of within rows and stuff, so that the roads and stuff don't take up a whole bunch more. Probably the biggest area cleared and stuff is actually the transmission line right away back to BC Hydro. And we're gonna be trying to follow roads for as much of that as well to minimize the footprint.
Okay, and then the location you mentioned, sounds like it's Crown land. What is the closest the turbines will be to residential? We have Bonaparte First Nations, we have 16 Mile, we have Loon Lake, all up within that area. How close would you be to any of those?
So it's a long way from any of those communities and stuff that you mentioned. To give you an idea, you can still see the screen, this little scale bar down here is 3 kilometers long. So for us to get over to like Bonaparte and the communities and stuff along Highway 97, we're probably about 10 to 15 kilometers away from the closest turbine. The closest turbine to kind of a residence and stuff actually would be up at Hyam Lake, and that would be about 4 kilometers to the closest cabin or residence up there.
Okay, and the last one, they're all kind of related, is what is the sound extension? How far would the sound of the turbines going and the whatever else there would be, how far would that travel?
Yeah, it's tough to say exactly how far it would travel. We would do sound studies and stuff as part of the BCR assessment to make sure it meets the BC criteria. But honestly, 4 kilometers away, there'll be like negligible sound and no real sound. It normally wouldn't even trigger a sound study likely at that distance from a house. Typically where you start to get potentially some impact from sound on residences is right around like anything, I'd say under 1.5 to 1 kilometer from a house is where you'd start to maybe hear some sound at at a residence, and even then that would be faint. I actually grew up on a farm that has wind turbines and stuff on it, and so pretty familiar with this. And just to give you an idea, like we have turbines under 1 kilometer from our house, and that meets the Alberta sound criteria, which is actually some of the most stringent sound criteria in Canada. So 4 kilometers is quite far away.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Can I ask questions?
Give her.
I'm from up at Loon Lake. Just to give you background, I'm an electrical engineer that worked in power generation, power distribution, and then went into venture capital financing for energy-based projects. So I really like this project. I think it's a great idea. And I'm closer probably to your site than anyone else up at Loon Lake. You know, my back gates head up into this area, so I really do know the winds up in there, and the winds are very favorable for the prevailing winds for power generation. But I want to jump ahead, kind of the areas I spent a lot of time in was, what's your capital financing model for this kind of thing? And take it from the point of view, I'm really in favor of it, so can you tell us about that?
Sure, yeah, no, they are capital intensive projects for sure. So, you know, a project this size would probably be, just as a ballpark, I'd say, you know, anywhere between $600 and $800 million as a kind of a rough rule of thumb. Blue Earth, in terms of is very well capitalized and is owned by DIF, the Dutch Infrastructure Fund. So it has lots of capital and stuff to take on these type of projects, and has done these size of projects before. So in terms of the capital required, Blue Earth is very well capitalized to be a long-term owner. And then there's also always the financing piece as well. So most of these projects are project financed. Rough, like rule of thumbs, probably like we're looking at around like maybe 20% equity, 80% debt. And so the debt markets also like lending towards these large infrastructure projects because they have a long-term 30-year BC Hydro PPA, which is attractive for off-takers from a risk point of view and things like that. So the financing would be a blend usually of capital and debt financing, usually from a consortium of kind of the large banks and stuff that you'd expect kind of in Canada, are kind of the key players. And then from our partners' perspective, NNTC, they have, and they've been through this already with QIM, worked with the Canadian Infrastructure Bank. So that's also an option for partners and stuff to look at for if they don't have the equity that they may need on hand, then the Canadian Infrastructure Bank will lend the equity at kind of a loan and stuff favorable. And the Canadian Infrastructure Bank was set up to kind of advance infrastructure projects across Canada, renewables and otherwise. So it's set up for these type of arrangements and stuff as well.
Councillor Ranta.
Okay, so I'm thank you for coming and explaining. I couldn't make it to your meeting at the hall just because it was kind of short notice for me. One of the things I love about living in Cache Creek is walking and watching the eagle families that I follow around the community. And I just did a quick Google search on do wind turbines hurt eagles? And what I found here on my quick in the moment search was that studies have shown that wind turbines kill an estimated 573,000 birds annually in the United States, which I, don't necessarily believe just doing a quick Google search. I'm not on a scholarly website. and I don't always trust everything I read online. So give me your take on the impact to our natural environment, i.e. living creatures, including birds, and what could the impact be? I mean, the dream, I think, for most residents in Cache Creek is that the area you're talking about, if it's a burnt out area, our dream is that it will become a forest again someday, and that we will we won't see evidence of the fire in 20 years or 30 years or 50 years, that we'll see reforestation. And then I think we will probably likely see more creatures, including my beloved eagle. So I'm curious about your description of the impact on wildlife, and please don't downplay it, because I would really like
Sure,
to hear as much truth as I
That's a
could.
good question. Yeah, no, great question. And yeah, I mean, no projects without its impacts. I'd say in terms of bird impacts and things now, we will be doing extensive environmental studies in that of the area. So we do lots of pre and post construction surveys, and there's mitigation and things that can go into place if projects having impacts. But ideally what we're doing is citing things where we feel like there's going to be very little impact. So there's a lot of work that goes into making sure things are outside of migratory routes and those type of things. In terms of the bird impacts from turbines and stuff now, I'd say it's come a long way, and the bird impacts are a lot less than they were when the wind energy industry was more in its infancy. The larger turbines spread out farther apart, and the blades being on taller towers than they were in the past tend to get has reduced the impacts, because it's out of the flight height for a lot of the birds that you were seeing impacts on. It doesn't mean that there's no impacts. There still will be probably some impacts. I think the average now is about 1 to 2. I'd have to double check the numbers, but I think you're seeing about 1 to 2 annual bird fatalities per kind of large modern wind turbine now. And once in a while they are birds of prey. More often it's smaller birds like songbirds and things that seem to have the collisions, but there is occasionally an eagle or something like that does get struck.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Not seeing any other questions. Thanks very much for your presentation.
Great. Well, thank you very much for having us in. And if you guys have any other questions, please feel free to reach out to Tyler or I, and we'll continue to keep you guys up to date as we advance the project through development.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
On then to the minutes of the October 20th regular meeting. Could I have a motion to adopt as circulated?
So moved.
Any discussion?
Yes, I did have.
Councillor Ranta?
Okay, so the change I would like to see made is in the discussion of the school district correspondence. It's just a slight change. I think I might not have been speaking clearly or something, and the log might not have got the words right. But it's the words should read that recently the Ministry of Education has been working on legislation for school districts to be required to have Indigenous education councils.
Okay.
So that's
You
a
have
little
that.
different
We'll get
than
that
just
from your.
Indigenous education, because it just doesn't quite portray it quite right. And I think Indigenous should have a capital I as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other amendments proposed to the minutes? Seeing none on the motion to adopt as circulated, all in favor, opposed, carried, thank you. I should have said adopt as amended.
As amended.
Yeah. Is there any business arising from the delegation? Seeing none, business arising from the minutes? Again, none. Committee reports, Economic Development, Councillor Dubois.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion that council directs staff to move forward with an application, the NDIT Rural and Remote Employment Initiatives Fund for discussion, please.
Is there a seconder?
Second?
Seconded, yes. Carry on.
So I just have a couple of questions from staff. I see that there's a component of this that would require us to put monies into this, matching it. I believe it's 10% of our own funding. I'm just wondering if that's been identified somewhere within the existing budget for that. And secondly, if they've got a target idea as to what the utilization would be for this plan. Is there a need for it? Where they see it fitting in?
Kind of all encompassing in that, and to kind of the rest of the topic. We became aware of it fairly late. Initially, when we first looked at it, just kind of the overview, there's a new grant available. It didn't look like something that was applicable to any of our strategic goals. And then NDIT reached out to us and asked us if we were interested in applying, which doesn't usually happen, so I thought I'd give it another look. Well, it doesn't specifically align with anything like any of our strategic goals. It could provide information on the demographics of the community, which is always a good thing. But it is an extremely quick turnaround. We haven't had the opportunity to identify funds like to offset our cost. So it was one of those things that we wanted to bring it to council to workshop or discuss. If a member of council or multiple members of council felt that there was a strong need to do it. But we would have to very rapidly create a proposal and a package and all that sort of stuff for it. So it was kind of because they asked us if we're interested, I said I would put it on the agenda. Because usually when they ask that means that they want to give away money. So yeah, it was one of I guess to answer your question, we don't have a specific idea or goal out of it. It's just they asked us about it. So.
Councillor Peters.
I think it's kind of an interesting idea. The labor market in this area has changed considerably over the last 20 years. And it used to be, we kind of had a pretty firm grip on what was needed and what we had and what we didn't have for the most part. I'm speaking from my business background on this one. I also see that it could also be done regionally, so we could work with the TNRD, Ashcroft, and perhaps Clinton, because we do have a lot of our residents that do not work within Cache Creek. They work within the terminal and the mine and Kamloops. So it would be interesting to see the turnaround time, though it really doesn't give us time to investigate the possibility of working with those other entities. I think it would give us a far better idea of where we're at with that, but it's just, I think in order to possibly aid some of our employers in the area with information for them, it would be interesting to see. I'm not sure that less than 2 weeks is enough time to put something together, though. It's just kind of unfortunate.
Thank you. Administrator Couture.
One additional point that I don't feel was really clear in the documentation. I feel like this is a one-off or one of a few smaller programs. And I think it's being created in response to tariffs. So a big part of it is to see how the labor market is being impacted by tariffs that are put on. It's giving people, and I say people, communities and enterprise the opportunity to determine what those changes have been within your community. I think that's what spurred the federal government funding the local groups to do their thing.
So would you like to prepare this? Do you think there's any value in it, or?
It's not for me to determine if there's value, it's if you want me to do it.
You're basically asking here we would like you to move forward with it. Would you like us to move forward with it?
I'm asking you if you want me to spend money on it. That's what I'm asking you.
Thank you, Councillor Ranta.
You know, like, I'm happy to see an opportunity come up like this, but I think sometimes wisdom lies in trying to, you know, be careful about how many things we promise we will do. And in a smaller organization, I would rather see our time really spent on what we've already determined is really important, that we've, in the budget, we've determined our plan and our journey. And it's sort of like the family is on the road traveling towards a destination, and somebody wants to spend an extra night here and here, and pretty soon, before you know it, you're not really getting the job done. Yeah, and the money too. So yeah, I tend to think that sometimes we try to do too much, and then everything suffers. So I would. That's kind of what this one where I'm at with it.
Thank you. I would move that we receive for information the Rural and Remote Employment Initiative
We
Fund.
have a point of order, we have
Mayor,
a motion on the table.
Oh, hey. Yo, yes. Councillor Dubois.
I just was wondering, do we have an estimate, CEO Couture, of what the cost would be for this type of a project? I realize that it's short notice, but I notice the funding is up to $50,000. Is that what we anticipate this would cost, or is it a lot less than that, or do we have a sense?
I don't have a good sense, but just looking at, like, could we spend $50,000? Yes, if council really wanted to, but I don't think that it would be a $50,000 project in Cache Creek. I think that something like this would probably be, like, if I was to put it on an RFP, I would probably put a limit on it at like $10,000, because there's only so much. If you say that our budget's $50,000, we'll get a whole bunch of stuff that we don't necessarily need. Whereas looking at it just from my past experience, it sounds like ultimately what they're looking for out of this is a bit of demographics and knowing who's who in the zoo makes sense, right, in the small town. So I think that it could be done for less in Cache Creek, if that answers your question.
It does. I'd like to comment. I think, well, it would be great if we had this in our program and in our planning. It does represent an opportunity. If this could be done in that range for $10,000, which would be $1,000 from the village, I think I would agree with Councillor Peters that there would be a lot of good quality information that we would be able to get out of it. So I'd be inclined to support that, but not for much more than that $1,000, $1,500 range. If it's going to come in significantly above that, then I would not be in support of it. It's kind of the way that I would see it. Not sure what other council members feel on the topic.
Yeah,
Councillor Peters.
I just think at this particular time with this short amount of notice that it would be a pretty big burden on staff to try to get this in place to move forward. So I won't support the motion.
Yeah, thank you. Any other discussion on the motion then? All those in favor? Opposed?
Opposed?
That makes it unanimous then. Okay, on to budget and administrative services. I don't have anything to share here. Which brings us to bylaw and policy review. Councillor Ranta.
I move that council receive and file the minutes of the bylaw and policy review committee held on October 20th, 2025.
Second.
Any discussion?
I would just like to let everyone know that the committee will be meeting monthly from now until June, and that we are developing, the end of our term of office, the policy work, and just trying to ensure that we kind of accomplish the goals that we set out at the beginning of the term. And so we're going to be working a little extra hard over the next few months.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the motion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you.
The next item is is council evaluation policy draft, and it's on page 24 of the agenda. We have a motion that I'll move that council adopt the draft council evaluation policy as presented.
Second.
Discussion? I was happy to say it's, to see that it's, subject to, whatever the word is there, anonymously and,
Confidential.
no, that it's optional.
Well, you will notice in the document, it also says that it's kind of recommended on an annual basis as well.
Yeah,
So
I did
I think
notice that.
council will need to, it will give a gentle way for the CAO to say, this is coming because it comes once a year. What do you think of it? Instead of the CAO waiting till things get a little crazy, none of the councilors are doing anything about it, and then they've got to come in and sort of try to change the landscape. So I think the goal is to set up good practices so that in the future, it just will roll along, and hopefully the council will see the value in maybe doing these exercises. It won't take very long. We've provided a kind of a template, simplified tool. Sometimes these things can be 2 or 3 days long, but this is kind of meant to streamline things. And I think, Sue, you had something to say?
I was just gonna say, there is also a public component to this, that at every meeting there will be an evaluation form available to the public, and I noticed there's a box in the back already, so that they can deposit them there. Is that what that's for? So, it's an opportunity for the public as well to kind of grade us and let us know the goods and the bads, because we need to know that kind of stuff.
Thank you. Administrator Co-Chair.
From the perspective of staff, I really hope that council endorses this because I already bought the ballot box. It's already bought here, ready to go, so that we were compliant with this meeting. Should you say yes? So I really hope it's.
Thank you.
Implementing it before we go.
On the motion then, all those in favor?
Oh, you got it.
Councillor Dubois?
I just had a question. Are we aware of any other municipal councils that are currently doing this in British Columbia?
I could
Not
find out.
explicitly.
I would love to find that out. I'm not sure that they have it in policy, and coming forward once a year. But I think there would, I'm sure that if I mentioned to the developer of the tool that we borrowed from Ali Mina, I'm sure that if I said to Ali Mina, what do you think of this idea? I don't think he would find it unreasonable. And he's one of many consultants that make money from dysfunctional boards. So.
He hasn't made much money around here then.
Right. Try to keep it that way.
Yeah. I think the whole idea of this, as much for me, I look at it as an opportunity for self-reflection as well. What could I do better? What am I doing right, and what do I think I'm doing right, and what do I think I'm doing wrong?
Yeah.
So.
Thank you. On the motion then, any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Public Works, Councillor Deaver. Thank you. Healthcare and Protective Services, Councillor Ranta.
Nothing new.
Emergency Management, Councillor Peters.
I would move that council receive and file the property claim status report from MIADC.
Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Parks and Recreation, Councillor Ranta.
I move that council receive and file the minutes of the Parks and Recreation Committee meeting held on October 28th, 2025.
Second.
Any discussion?
Just so the council is aware, there's gonna be a report coming to us from, the work of the committee, which is development of a parks plan, recreation facilities, park recreation plan. That the motion, like we had a discussion of the coverall the other day and at our last meeting, that is discussed in the report as well, so the more to come.
Thank you. On the motion then to receive and file the minutes, any further discussion? All those in favor, opposed, carried, thank you. Landfill Advisory Committee, there's the post-care cost statement, and I was delighted to see that we're 309,539 below budget for this period ending September 30th. I would move that we receive and file the statement.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried? Thanks, Kelly, for saving us all that money. TNRD and Intergovernmental Liaison. We've got a provincial response to the 2024 resolution from UBCM, which I read carefully and didn't understand a word that it said. I don't think it said anything, to be honest with you.
My note says non-answer.
Yeah, that's right. I got the same thing out of it. But the recommendation is that we receive and file a letter from UBCM regarding the provincial response to the 2024 resolution presented at UBCM by the village regarding responsible solid waste management strategies. Is there a seconder? Seconded. Discussion? Councillor Peters?
I don't think they understood the question.
Well, intentionally, probably.
Yeah. Just for those listening, the resolution was that there is unfair practices. BC landfills are held to a far higher standard than those out of country. And GVRD and Lower Mainland ships garbage to Washington.
Yeah.
And it puts us at a distinct disadvantage. And we asked them to review that and make the rules apply to everyone. And basically, they didn't answer the question.
No, they didn't. Councillor Ranta?
Well, when I read that response, it just made me mad.
Well, you're not the only one, I think.
And I thought, like, what is the point? Like, what is the point of UBCM passing that motion if we're just going to get an absolute terrible answer like that?
Baffled, yeah.
I just found it very insulting and very, like our village, we paid for that meeting, for that motion. I think there were 4 of us at UBCM at quite a big cost. And I remember John was very ill and I was at COVID in that hotel room, and he got to the convention to move that motion. It was not an easy feat, and it just feels like it's fallen on deaf ears, and it shouldn't have fallen on deaf ears given the political situation that we're in with all the tariffs. It just shouldn't. It should be part of the provincial strategy to pressure the United States back. And I think they've missed the boat completely. It didn't get to the right level of government or something. It was bureaucratized, which is fine. I can see bureaucrats being a bit afraid to get into the realm of, dealing with this motion as a tariff strategy. But I think we need to write the Premier. I really do. I think it needs to go directly to the Premier, this request, to tell them that we are unhappy with the response we got, that the intention of the motion was this, and send it out to every municipality member of UBCM, as well as First Nations, and just see what happens, because I don't think the buck should really stop with this, terrible reply. So I move that.
We've already got a motion that we received and filed a letter from UBCM.
Oh, well, we can do that, and then I'll do mine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any further discussion on the receive and file the motion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried? Councillor Ranta.
Okay, so just what I said about, I move that we lobby the Premier to reduce the waste export to the United States so that we have the exporting of waste to the United States stop during the tariff period.
Thank you. I already wrote a letter to the Premier about that, but that's okay. We can do another one if you want.
I'll
Is there a seconder?
I'll second.
Seconded. Administrator Co-Chair.
Might I recommend inviting the MLA for a conversation on the subject to lobby on our behalf? Maybe in
That'd be
conjunction with this, or
Well, you could
Just
see
an
him
idea.
and then we can maybe contact him on a phone call.
because I know he's always through the area, so maybe he gets an invitation to come and talk to council, and then he can go and yell at someone.
So will you consider that a friendly amendment to your motion?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. Any further discussion on the motion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Yeah, it took them a month or two to respond to my letter, but I didn't, it was a similar response to the one we got back from the provincial government. It said nothing. Around the bush. Yeah, that's right.
And did we get the words premier in there?
Yeah.
Okay.
That we lobby the Premier to reduce the waste export to the U.S. so that we have my language was typing fast, so that we have the exporting to the U.S. stop during tariffs, and to copy our local MLA to discuss the topic.
Thank you.
Clean it up.
Yeah.
Reference the
That's fairly
resolution on that response.
On to letters to stakeholders regarding highway corridor safety issues. There's a suggested recommendation that council authorize Mayor Renta to sign the letter to stakeholders regarding highway corridor safety issues.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Administrator Co-Chair.
The one thing of note with this topic is looking at this, it's reaching out to all of the affected parties within the highway corridor that are impacted. I just wasn't sure with this if council was in favor of moving forward with it. If it was going to be in all of Cache Creek Council, this committee, or a special committee that was going to handle representing the village of Cache Creek. So I just wanted to bring that to the forefront if this goes through, because that'll have to be determined as well.
Yeah, we'll figure it out if we get a meeting. Any further discussion on the motion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Proposed letter to TNRD Board of Directors related to TNRD Waste Management Plan Amendment process on page 33. Could I have a motion to forward the letter to TNRD?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Councillor Ranta?
Well, there's been quite a journey of concern for a while. I kind of went back into agendas and back into my emails that I've sent to the TNRD in the past, and I was present at the meeting when the TNRD board discussed the issue, and it's just been a really bumpy ride. And I think we've talked about it a few times here at the council. We did talk about it in the June committee the whole meeting. We never really had a motion to send a letter, which I kind of mistakenly thought we had, just because it was on my mind as if we should. And so I'm really glad that we're looking at sending a letter like this. Really, I think what would have helped in the situation, what was the first, and I think they've got the process on the agenda, but during 1.1C, the proposed project will go to the TNRD, the full board, and that.
Well, it says board, but it didn't.
Well, the process is more locked in than it was then, or something, that apparently. But the process has like a proposal, like if it, let's say, happened again and it was proposed for Crown Lounge within our boundaries, some project could be anything for waste, and it would be an amendment to the waste management plan, the proposal, similar to the one we just had at the meeting, only waste related, would go to the board, and the board would say yes or no to it going through the process. That is when the municipality would get notified that this is occurring at that board table. And to me, that's not quite thorough enough, because if your director doesn't really catch it on the agenda, or if there's a substitute that day, maybe somebody that normally like, let's say our representative at the table isn't there that day, and maybe nobody's there. Maybe somebody that doesn't really catch the meaning of what's on the agenda is there. That really isn't thorough enough, and I think that it should be added in at 1C that the municipality also be notified, and that the municipality would at that stage, in early stage, have an opportunity to review the information and give an opinion on what they think should occur, not just the representative of the municipality at the board table. And that's where I really think this process, the waste amendment process for TNRD, isn't quite right. And so what occurred is that the proponent of the last project probably spent a considerable amount of time and money to develop a plan and go through processes. And I did watch a waste management committee meeting where there was 3 professionals on over 1 hour long presentation to the waste management committee with all kinds of charts and documents and plans. And I just think that the process is flawed when there's that much wasted staff time and proponent time.
And money.
And that the municipal voice needs to be earlier in the game to really avoid these, this situation that was really not good for relationships. It was politically not recommended in any way for any municipality anywhere to go through what we went through and what our relationships have gone through. So I really think it's important that they change it. I did talk to Russ Black about it way back, over a year ago, and he was mentioning to me that other plans in the province for amendment processes for regional districts have the municipal voice earlier and sooner in the game, and that really there does need to be, in my opinion, some tweaking to the amendment process that we have, and really it doesn't really matter whether the process was or wasn't in place at the time that this all occurred. It's really thinking about what another process would feel like or be like for a municipality in the same boat that we were in. Maybe it would be a little more streamlined. Maybe there wouldn't be so much staff and proponent difficult waste of time and money, but that's kind of what this letter is intended to do.
Thank you. Just for background for council, I would draw your attention to page 50 of the agenda, which has the various steps from 1 through 3 or 4, 1 through 4, identified. And while it says in 1C, project screening board meeting is held to determine if the amendment request is in the public's interest. What happened last time with the Bonaparte proposal is they made their presentation to the Waste Management Committee. And it was only members of the Waste Management Committee that came to me later and said, did you know that the Bonaparte is planning to put a landfill in Cache Creek? And I hadn't known, and I wasn't a member of that committee, so I didn't know. And so, the whole thing, then the TNRD got busy amending their their plan, their process flow chart, or whatever you want to call it. And I agree with Director Ranta that the notification to a municipality directly impacted by such a proposal should be at just after 1A and before 1B, rather than over in step 3. And especially when we've got a First Nations proposal and we're trying to develop opportunities for reconciliation throughout the country. And here, I can remember the Bonaparte was at the TNRD meeting where their proposal was rejected by the board, and they were angry and left angry the meeting. And I am disappointed that we created an opportunity to anger a neighboring First Nation that had a reasonable proposal, or what they thought was a reasonable proposal, but that the village was not in any way, and the TNRD was not in any way supporting. So I think this is a good letter to send, and the TNRD needs to stop suggesting that their process on page 50 is perfect the way it is, because in my mind, it certainly is not. Thank you very much. Any further discussion on the motion? All those in favor? Oh, yeah. Councillor Dubois.
I believe in the past we've traditionally had staff review the letter, ensure that it's correct for formatting and all that sort of stuff. So I just like to make a point that we ensure that staff does have a chance to go through the letter before it goes out, make sure it's all up to date, and if there's any additional information that should be included, I would suggest that we would do that at this time.
Yeah, thank you. The administrator is either nodding because he's falling asleep or agreeing with you.
Both.
And both apparently. So we'll make sure that happens, Councillor Dubois.
Thank you.
Okay, on the motion then, any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. On to Cache Creek Community Fund, Councillor Dubois. Maybe it was Councillor Dubois that was falling asleep.
There must be a connection thing.
No, I put my mic on mute and then I realized I didn't take it off.
No problem. You were talking to yourself then.
I can neither confirm nor deny. I'd like to make a motion that council donate $750 to the Ashcrofton Area Community Resource Society Christmas Hamper Fund.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed?
Just quick question, would this donation go out of our Cache Creek fund?
Yes.
Is it okay? Thank you.
Carried. On to Desert Sands Community Hall, I think, Councillor Dubois.
I'd like to make a recommendation that council approve the request from the 2026 Desert Sands Community School graduating class for free use of the community hall from June 23rd to 26th inclusive.
Second.
Discussion? Free use of the community. Okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Staff reports. CAO Couture.
You're good to receive and file.
Okay, move that we receive and file a report from CAO Couture regarding the TNRD Regional Solid Waste Management Plan amendments.
So moved.
Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Net landfill royalty, I would move the council receive and file a report from CFO Martini regarding landfill royalties from 2020 to Q3 of 2025. you notice that the waste volumes are going up, and I think that is largely as a result of direction from either the Premier because of the letter I wrote to him, or recognition on the part of the lower mainland municipalities that perhaps they shouldn't be exporting 350 to 450,000 tons of waste to the United States. And so I think we are benefiting from that a little bit, and so is the village of Ashcroft. On the motion to receive and file a report, any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Strategic Priorities Fund. I would move that we support the application for Strategic Priorities Fund Capital Infrastructure Stream for the Critical Water Valve Replacement Project, and that the Village of Cache Creek supports the proposed activities, including the application, and further that the Village of Cache Creek is willing to provide overall grant management of the funded project, and further that the Village of Cache Creek commits to supporting any potential cost overruns associated with the project.
Second.
Any discussion? Administrator Co-Chair.
Just for the record, council already did vote on this. It's just that the grant funders wanted to.
Want another one?
Yes, they wanted the wording.
Specific wording.
Yeah. The fact that they asked us that is good news.
Councilor Liebert?
Is there any expectations to go into cost overruns?
No. No. Better not be.
Thank you.
We don't go over budget here.
Budget by much.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. On to information correspondence. There's one item of outgoing correspondence. Could I have a motion to receive the correspondence?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Is there any new business? Seeing none, I don't see any public here.
Sorry.
Oh,
I just had one thing for council's input. At the last committee of the whole meeting, there was discussion by council about a survey for programming in the area, activities and programming in the region. I've left one of these on council's desk, not expecting like a yay nay vote or anything like that. Just looking over the next little bit, if council could review the draft survey and let me know if there's anything you would like added to it, and we'll be sending it out probably within this month.
thank you.
And it's my pleasure to say that there are over 60 activities through the help with of the Village of Ashcroft, the Hub, the Visitor Information Center, the Lions. I asked everyone I could think of, and I've since found more, what activities are offered. And I found over 60 activities in the Ashcroft Cache Creek area. Within 10 minutes of Ashcroft and Cache Creek
Yeah.
has been my line.
Yeah.
Check Bonaparte too.
Yeah.
So we could, see.
Yeah.
So do you want us to review it and like suggest changes to it? Is that the idea?
If you have any recommendations, either for change or additions,
Okay.
Please let me know.
Well, that's really interesting.
Thank you. He didn't give it to you to fill it out.
She just wants to.
I was mentally checking boxes.
Yeah, me too.
I know Sue wants to get all of the boxes checked.
No, there's
not
a
a
few I'll
competition.
pass on, but
Anyway, I'm not gonna join karate.
no. I did in the past.
Oh, okay.
Aki.
Thank you.
Okay, any questions from the press?
She's asleep.
Just.
No.
No, okay. We have need of a closed session pursuant to section 90.1 and 90.2 of the community charter. Could I have a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried? Thank you. Brief